In the endless stretch of space, silence ruled. No wind, no sound, only the quiet hum of stars burning in the distance. The Zalorian patrol fleet drifted near the edge of a neutral system, their sleek silver ships gliding like shadows across the void. They were not searching for trouble, only watching, scanning, keeping the peace that had lasted for centuries. Yet on this day, something unusual appeared at the farthest edge of their sensors. At first, it looked like a faint signal, a blur against the darkness. One officer thought it was an asteroid. Another believed it was just debris. But as the signal grew stronger, the truth became clear. A massive vessel was entering the system. It moved with slow, deliberate motion, as if not in any hurry, yet its presence alone demanded attention. The captain of the Zalorian patrol, a calm leader named Solon, stood before the main screen of his ship. His crew waited in silence as the image cleared. What they saw left them uneasy. The vessel was unlike any ship they had seen. It was larger than their war cruisers, larger even than the transport giants used by trading guilds. Its hull was dark and broad, shaped not for beauty, but for strength. There were no glowing panels, no decorated fins, only steel and shadow. One young officer whispered, "Is it a station? Maybe abandoned?" But Solon shook his head. The vessel was moving with purpose. It was not drifting like an empty shell. Its engines pulsed with deep light, a rhythm steady like a heartbeat. The council back home had long dismissed humans as ambitious but limited. Yes, humans had survived wars and disasters, but they were not thought of as great builders. Yet now here, before the Zalorian patrol, was a warship bearing the mark of Earth. The name could be faintly read on the side of its hull, Guardian of Dawn. Solon ordered his crew to prepare long-range scans. A beam of energy was released, touching the hull of the human ship. Usually such scans passed easily through metal, showing every deck and system inside. But this time, the feedback was strange. Instead of clear readings, their instruments flickered. The ship resisted as though its walls were alive. Lauren, the chief scientist aboard the patrol, frowned at the data. He had studied hundreds of alien vessels, but this one was different. The outer hull was layered with metals he could not identify. Signals bounced back in irregular waves, bending their scanners into confusion. He checked twice, then 3 times, but the result stayed the same. "This ship is not simple," he told Solon quietly. "It is stronger than it appears." Inside the human warship, life carried on in steady rhythm. Captain Ryan, tall and calm, stood on the bridge with his officers. He was aware of the distant scans brushing against their shields, but he showed no worry. His ship had crossed many systems and had drawn many curious eyes. He knew the Zalorians were watching now, and he allowed it. Sometimes silence was more powerful than words. The crew of the Guardian of Dawn worked with discipline. Some monitored navigation, others kept the great engines stable. Every action was measured, without rush, without fear. They trusted their ship, and their ship responded like a living guardian. Back aboard the Zalorian patrol, whispers spread among the younger crew. They had heard tales of human stubbornness, stories of how Earth never bowed even when facing stronger foes. But seeing this ship in person gave those tales new weight. It was not reckless design, it was deliberate. The vessel looked plain from the outside, yet something about it suggested hidden strength. Laren turned to his captain. "This is no drifting relic. It is awake, and it is prepared." Solon kept his gaze fixed on the dark warship. He felt unease growing in his chest. For centuries, the Zolorians had measured power by size of fleets and sharpness of weapons, but this single ship, alone in the silent system, gave off an aura far greater than numbers. It was as though the humans had poured not only technology, but their will and spirit into its metal bones. The patrol ships kept their distance, circling slowly, never daring to come too close. They wanted to see more, to understand what the humans had created, yet some instinct warned them. The vessel seemed calm, but calmness could hide storms. The silence of space stretched on. Stars burned, asteroids drifted, and between them stood the human warship, a giant born of Earth's history. To the Zolorians, it was both mystery and warning. If this was only one ship, what else waited beyond the dark? And so the first part of the story unfolded not with battle, but with quiet arrival. A ship built by human hands, carrying secrets. Unknown, had entered alien sight. The Zolorians did not yet know the depth of what they faced. They only felt a truth rising within them. Something about humanity had changed, and the galaxy would soon understand. The Zolorian patrol ship floated in silence, its crew staring at the strange warship that had entered their system. The vessel from Earth stood like a mountain of steel, unmoved by the scanning beams that touched its hull. For the Zolorians, who believed every secret of the universe could be uncovered with their sensors, this was a new and unsettling experience. Lauren, the chief scientist, leaned over his console, his long fingers dancing across the glowing surface. Numbers shifted and charts filled the air above the screen, yet none of it made sense. The first scan had failed to give them a clear picture. Instead of opening up the ship like glass, the data came back twisted, blurred, almost as though the vessel was shielding itself on purpose. Solon, the patrol captain, stood behind him with a steady face. "Try again," he ordered. His voice carried no panic, but everyone could feel the weight of curiosity and caution in his words. The second scan was prepared. This time, the power of the beam was increased, designed to pierce the thickest alloys and the strongest barriers. The beam left the Zolorian ship in a thin stream of energy, invisible to the eye but strong enough to bend through layers of steel. It struck the Guardian of Dawn and spread across its surface. At first, the result seemed normal. Waves bounced back and their screens lit with information. But within seconds, strange feedback flooded the instruments. The ship did not weaken under the scan. Instead, it shone brighter on their readings, as though absorbing the energy and reflecting it back in amplified form. Lauren frowned deeply. "This cannot be correct," he muttered. His assistants recalibrated the system, yet the data kept climbing. The warship's hull was not a single metal. It was built of layered alloys that shifted under pressure, rearranging themselves like flowing liquid yet remaining strong as rock. Every attempt to measure it revealed something new, as if the ship was alive and choosing what to reveal. "What kind of material is this?" one young officer asked nervously. "It bends our scans, but it does not break." Lauren tapped his screen again. His voice was low but filled with wonder. "This is no ordinary alloy. It adapts. I think it repairs itself constantly, sealing every weakness before it can be exploited." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. A ship that could heal itself was beyond anything in Zolorian design. Their ships were beautiful and fast, but once damaged, they required repair stations. This human warship seemed to carry its own station within its body. Solon folded his arms. And inside? Lauren shook his head slowly. Hidden. There are compartments, many of them. They are sealed with energy we cannot read. It is like trying to see through a wall that changes every time you look at it. The captain's eyes narrowed. For decades, the Zalorians had watched humans from afar. They had seen them fight, seen them rebuild, and seen them expand. But never had they expected this level of advancement. Inside the Guardian of Dawn, the crew knew what was happening. Screens on their bridge displayed faint traces of the scanning beams, but no alarm sounded. Captain Rian stood calmly, watching the silent stars beyond the viewing glass. His officers were steady at their stations, not rushing, not panicking. The ship's systems absorbed the scans as easily as the sea absorbs falling rain. One officer asked quietly, "Captain, do you want us to block their scans?" Ryan shook his head. "Let them see what they can. Curiosity is not a weapon. It is their fear that will decide what they do next." Back aboard the Zalorian patrol ship, the data reached a peak. The scans showed the presence of enormous power, sources deep inside the human warship. But these were not ordinary reactors. The readings showed energy beyond plasma, beyond antimatter. It felt like pieces of stars contained in the vessel's heart. The crew gasped when the number appeared. On their screens, the output was higher than anything they had ever witnessed. Lauren rubbed his forehead. Impossible. If our instruments are correct, then the humans have contained stellar fragments within reinforced cores. This ship carries the power of miniature suns. The control chamber fell silent. Every officer understood the meaning. A ship that carried such power was not a drifting relic. It was a fortress that could travel for centuries without refueling, a vessel that could outlast any siege. One young officer whispered, "If they have one ship like this, how many more could they have built?" The thought spread through the crew like a shadow. The Zalorians had always believed themselves more advanced, more controlled, more disciplined than humans. But the data in front of them suggested that humanity had crossed a threshold none of them expected. Solon spoke finally, his voice firm. "We must be careful. Do not provoke them. Continue watching, but hold your distance." The younger crew nodded, though their eyes never left the image of the warship. It drifted calmly, silent and unmoving, yet it radiated the quiet strength of a mountain in the middle of the sea. Inside his chamber, Lauren stared at the readings long after the others looked away. He felt something deeper than fear. It was respect, perhaps even admiration. The humans had built something that was not only strong but wise in its design. It was not built for show, not decorated with useless details. It was built to survive, to endure, to remind the galaxy that Earth's people were not to be dismissed. The scientist whispered to himself, "What have the humans become?" And outside, the stars continued to shine, silent witnesses to the meeting of two civilizations, one watching with curiosity, the other standing with quiet confidence. The first scan had revealed only a glimpse of the truth, and already the Zalorians were astonished. The great warship Guardian of Dawn moved steadily across the dark system. From the outside, it looked like a giant shadow, a vessel of steel and hidden power. To the Zalorians, it was a mystery too deep for their scanners to explain. But inside, its massive walls, life was calm and ordered, shaped by discipline that had been drilled into every member of the crew. The command deck stretched wide, filled with soft blue lights and steady hums of machinery. At the center stood Captain Ryan, a tall figure with steady eyes. He did not shout, nor did he rush. His strength was quiet, carried in the way he watched every screen, the way he trusted his people, and the way his people trusted him in return. Around him worked his officers. Thomas, who guided navigation, sat at the left side of the bridge, his fingers running across the smooth controls. Lyra, the communication officer, kept her ears open to every signal, her voice calm as she reported incoming. Sounds from beyond the hull. Arun, a watchful engineer, monitored the great engines that powered the ship, his hands ready to adjust any system if needed. And Mira, the tactical officer, stood near the captain, her sharp eyes following the readings of the outer sensors. Though they all knew the Zalorians were watching, no fear touched their faces. For them, being scanned by outsiders was not a threat, but a simple reality of travel. Humans had faced worse than curious eyes. They had faced hunger, fire, storms, and war. A beam of energy brushing across their hull was nothing compared to the trials of Earth's long history. Captain Ryan spoke at last, his voice firm yet calm. "They are scanning us again. How do we read their intent?" Mira glanced at her screens. "Their ships stay at distance. No signs of weapons being charged. They want to know who we are, but they do not want to fight." "Then let them look," Ryan said. "A ship is judged not only by what it shows, but also by what it hides." His officers nodded. They knew the design of the Guardian of Dawn better than anyone. Unlike many alien vessels, this warship was not built for elegance or speed. It was built for endurance, built to travel through storms of space and stand strong against any enemy. Every wall inside was layered with strength. Every system had a second, even a third backup. If one control failed, another would rise to take its place. Nothing inside the ship could be broken by a single strike. Arun, the engineer, leaned back from his panel. "Engines are steady. They could burn for another 1,000 years if we wished. She was made for distance, Captain, and she still holds true." Ryan gave a small nod. He felt pride, not in himself, but in the work of many hands, many minds that had built this ship. It was not just metal and circuits. It was the memory of human struggle, the echo of every generation that had fought to rise higher. In the living quarters below the command deck, the crew carried on with quiet routines. Some shared meals, some trained in the exercise halls, some studied charts of distant stars. There was no rush, no loud voices. They had traveled together too long for panic or doubt. Each member trusted the others as family, bound not by blood, but by the shared duty of carrying Earth's strength across the stars. Young cadets, who were newer to the crew, walked the long corridors with eyes full of wonder. They had grown up, hearing stories of past wars and human hardships, but now they stood inside the greatest creation of their people. They touched the steel walls with their hands, feeling the quiet thrum of energy within. It was like touching the heartbeat of a living guardian. Above them, the Zalorians kept watching. Their scans returned strange readings, but no clear answers. To them, the crew was hidden behind walls of mystery. They could not see the steady faces of humans working without fear. They could not hear the calm voices or feel the quiet pride flowing through every deck. All they saw was a shadow, and sometimes a shadow is more powerful than a flame. Laren, the Zalorian scientist, stared at the endless data flowing on his screen. "I still cannot understand it," he said to his captain. "Their systems look ordinary at first, but then change the moment I measure them. It is like they are aware of us, aware of what we search for." Solon, the patrol captain, kept his eyes on the dark vessel. "Perhaps that is the point. Perhaps they want us to look, but never truly see." Back on the Guardian of Dawn, Captain Ryan folded his hands behind his back. "Let them wonder," he said softly. "Sometimes questions are stronger than answers." The crew did not cheer, nor did they smile widely. They only nodded, understanding his words. To them, strength was not about showing every weapon, every secret, every power. True strength was in silence, in patience, in allowing others to see only what you chose to show. The ship continued its journey, a calm giant against the black ocean of space. Inside, humans worked with quiet discipline, their lives simple yet steady. And outside, the Zalorians circled, scanning again and again, never finding the full truth. They had seen the warship's size. They had measured its strange alloys. They had touched the edge of its energy. But the real secret of the Guardian of Dawn was not its engines or its weapons. It was the people inside, humans who carried patience like armor, discipline like a sword, and history like a shield. And so the story deepened. The aliens saw a warship of steel, but what they could not see was far greater. The strength of Earth did not lie only in metal or power. It lived in the hearts of those who guided the ship, in their steady eyes, their calm voices, and their unshaken will. The Zalorians would learn this truth in time, but for now, they stared into a mystery. A ship with no fear, a crew with no panic, and a silence that spoke louder than any weapon. The Zalorian patrol fleet remained in silent orbit, their ships keeping a wide circle around the human warship. Every officer on board wanted to understand what they were looking at, but the more they scanned, the less sense it seemed to make. The vessel called Guardian of Dawn was calm and unmoving, yet the readings it gave were beyond anything in Zalorian history. Inside the patrol's command chamber, the scientist Lauren adjusted the sensors again. His assistants hovered nearby, their eyes fixed on the glowing screens. When the second scan had returned impossible results, many thought it was an error. Now Lauren prepared for a deeper, stronger probe. "Begin scan sequence," Captain Solon ordered. His voice was steady, but those who knew him well could hear a faint edge of tension. The beam was released once more. Energy swept across the massive, human vessel, searching for weakness. At first, the data was faint. Then, within seconds, their instruments began to flash with violent streams of numbers. Alarms chimed softly, not in warning of danger, but in warning of overwhelming information. Laren leaned forward. His long fingers moved quickly across the console, trying to catch the flood of numbers before they drowned his screen. His eyes widened as the picture grew clear. "Captain, you must see this." Solon stepped closer. The screen showed readings of the ship's power sources. They were not fueled by plasma, not by antimatter, not by any known engine. The ship carried inside its heart compressed stellar fragments, pieces of stars bound within reinforced cores. Each reactor glowed with the light of a sun, caged but alive. "This is not possible," Solon said quietly. Laren shook his head. "And yet, here it is. These cores are stable. The humans have contained what no other race has dared. This ship holds power that could burn across centuries without ending. The officers around the room fell into silence. To them, a reactor was always a fragile thing, powerful but dangerous, demanding constant care. Yet the humans had turned stars themselves into servants. With such power, the Guardian of Dawn could cross endless systems without refueling. It could power cities, fleets, or entire planets, all by itself. One young officer whispered, "With one core we could supply our capital for a generation, and they carry not one, but many." The truth weighed heavy in the chamber. Humanity, once seen as restless and unrefined, had reached a level of mastery none expected. This warship was not only strong, it was enduring, built to last through time itself. Back on the Guardian of Dawn, the crew carried on with calm discipline. Deep within the reactor chamber, glowing light filled the air. Engineers walked along bridges that crossed above the great cores. The fragments of stars pulsed, gently, caged within walls of reinforced alloy. The light was warm, almost golden, and the hum of energy was steady like a song. Aaron, the chief engineer, stood with two young cadets who had never seen the chamber before. They stared with wide eyes at the living glow beneath them. "Is it true?" one cadet asked. "Are these really pieces of stars?" Arun nodded with quiet pride. "Yes. They are fragments taken from dead suns, captured and bound. They are dangerous if left alone, but inside this ship they are calm. They are not slaves. They are partners. The ship listens to them, and they listen in return." The cadets fell silent, their faces filled with awe. To them, it was like standing before a god. But to the humans, it was a reminder of their long journey. They had once feared the stars, then studied them, then reached them, and finally learned to hold their fire without being consumed. Above, Captain Rian listened as reports flowed into the bridge. He heard of the scans striking again, but his face showed no concern. "Let them see the light," he said quietly. "It will tell them more about us than words ever could." Back aboard the Zalorian ship, astonishment spread like fire. Lauren showed the captain and his officers the stabilizers holding the stellar fragments in place. He explained how the walls around them shifted constantly, changing with pressure, sealing every weakness. "It is more than engineering," he said softly. "It is as though the humans shaped living cages for stars." Captain Solon frowned. "Why build such a ship? Do they plan conquest?" Lauren shook his head. "No. Look at their systems. This is not a vessel of greed or expansion. It is built for defense, built to last, built to guard. They named it well, Guardian of Dawn. They did not build it to strike first. They built it so no one could strike." "Them down." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. The truth was clear. If humans had built such ships, then no empire could threaten them without risk of ruin. For centuries, the Zalorians had seen humans as bold but fragile, reckless but limited. Yet this single vessel had overturned every belief. Humanity had walked into the realm of power not with noise or pride, but with quiet mastery. Solon looked once more at the dark vessel on his screen. It moved with steady grace, carrying its hidden suns across the void. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "The galaxy has misjudged Earth. We thought them restless children. We were wrong. Lauren's eyes stayed fixed on the readings. His voice filled with both respect and unease. We are watching not only a ship, we are watching the rise of something greater. Humanity has turned fire into stone and silence into strength. This is no fleet's weapon. This is a message to the stars. The patrol crew kept their eyes on the shadow of the warship. They were filled with astonishment, but also a quiet fear. For if this was only one ship, how many more waited in the dark? And so the galaxy's understanding of Earth began to change. The astonishment of one patrol fleet would soon spread like ripples through every star system. Humanity had shown its hand, and the result was something no alien race could ignore. The Zalorian patrol ships floated in silent formation, their eyes fixed on the human warship. They had seen the impossible reactors, had measured the shifting alloys, yet still the Guardian of Dawn held secrets they could not reach. To their scientists, it was a puzzle that refused to be solved. To their soldiers, it was a shadow that carried weight heavier than fleets. Inside the command chamber, Lauren's team prepared yet another scan. Their last results had been astonishing, but still incomplete. Lauren's curiosity pressed him forward. He wanted to know the truth that hid behind the steel walls. "Begin pulse sequence," he said quietly. The new beam swept across the human ship. At first it moved smoothly, sliding over the hull. Then, as though the ship itself had noticed, the readings shifted. The pulse came back bent, twisted, transformed into patterns no machine could explain. It was no longer simple reflection. It was response. Lauren froze. His assistant stared at the screens. The warship was not only blocking the scan, it was answering it, changing the signal before sending it back. "This ship," Lauren whispered. "It reacts as though it can feel us." The words sent unease across the chamber. Ships were machines. They followed commands. They obeyed systems, but they did not feel. And yet the Guardian of Dawn behaved as though it had awareness, as though it understood it was being studied. Solon stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Are you saying it is alive?" Lauren shook his head slowly. "Not alive as we know it. But its systems are connected like nerves. The alloys are not only metal, they are woven with neural threads, streams of light that carry signals faster than thought. This ship is not only built, it is grown." A silence followed his words. The officers looked again at the dark vessel on their screen. Its hull seemed to shift slightly, as if breathing. Inside the Guardian of Dawn, the truth was clear to its crew. The ship was no ordinary machine. It had been crafted with human hands and human minds, but over time, it had become more. Its walls carried neural layers that responded like muscles. Its systems worked not only with commands, but with instinct. The crew guided it, but the ship guided them in return. In the command deck, Captain Ryan rested his hand on the rail near his chair. A faint vibration passed beneath his palm, steady and warm. He did not need a screen to know the Zalorians were scanning again. The ship itself whispered the truth to him through its living nerves. "They are pressing deeper," Ryan said softly. Mira, the tactical officer, gave a small smile. "Let them press. They will find only what we allow." The captain nodded. The Guardian of Dawn was more than a warship. It was a guardian in truth, one that carried its crew not as passengers, but as partners. Together they formed a bond stronger than steel. In the engineering decks, Aaron watched as the neural threads pulsed with light, carrying energy from the reactors to the farthest corners of the vessel. He explained it once to new cadets. This ship does not serve us like a slave. It listens to us like a companion. When we walk its halls, it knows our steps. When we speak, it remembers our voices. It is not only a ship, it is a story written in metal and light. The cadets listened, with awe. They had heard of machines with advanced systems, but none that felt so close to living. For them, it was like stepping inside the body of a giant that had chosen to protect them. Back on the Zalorian patrol, unease turned into quiet fear. Lauren studied the streams of light his scans revealed. "It is aware of us," he said again. "Every pulse we send, it changes. It is almost as though it watches us in return." One officer stepped back from the console. "Then we are not the hunters," he whispered. "We are the ones being studied." Solon said nothing for a long time. He watched the human vessel, its dark shape calm and steady, yet carrying the weight of something greater. At last he spoke with quiet respect. "This is no machine of war. It is a being of war. The humans have created something that stands between life and steel." The patrol officers felt the truth in his words. They had long believed their own ships to be the height of grace and design. Yet here was something far beyond them, a creation that carried both the strength of metal and the awareness of mind. On the Guardian of Dawn, Captain Ryan turned to his crew. "They will fear what they do not understand," he said. "But fear is not our weapon. Silence is." His officers nodded. They did not prepare missiles. They did not raise shields. They only continued their steady watch, allowing the ship to breathe and hum quietly around them. The Zalorians, however, felt their certainty weaken. They had seen energy like suns, alloys that shifted, walls that healed, and now nerves that glowed like thought itself. Their astonishment grew heavier with each scan. They no longer asked how the ship was made. They asked how many more waited across the stars. Lauren stared at the vessel one final time that day. He did not feel only fear. He felt wonder, deep and unshakable. For in this ship, he saw the truth of humanity, born in struggle, forged in survival, now risen to build machines that stood like living guardians of their will. And in the silent space between two civilizations, the Guardian of Dawn remained steady, a giant alive with quiet breath, a shadow carrying the heart of Earth. The Zalorian patrol fleet hovered silently near the human warship, their sensors struggling to make sense of what they had discovered. Every scan revealed more than any of them expected. They had seen impossible energy sources, alloys that adapted and repaired themselves, and neural threads that suggested a ship alive in ways they had never imagined. Lauren, the chief scientist, stood over the console, his eyes wide with disbelief. "They are not only strong," he whispered. "They are patient, deliberate, and intelligent in ways we cannot measure." Captain Solon nodded slowly. "And yet, they have not attacked. They have not even acknowledged us directly. They only continue their course." The silence was broken when the communication console flickered to life. A calm voice spoke across their channels. It was clear, steady, and carried a weight that commanded attention. "This is Captain Rian of the warship Guardian of Dawn," the voice said. "We are aware of your scans. We do not intend harm, and we hope you do not intend any. I speak now to share clarity before misunderstanding grows." The Zalorians froze at hearing a human voice. None had expected contact. Lauren's hand shook slightly as he wrote the translation on his screen. Ryan continued. "We are not here to conquer. We are not here to boast. Our ship is built to protect, to endure, and to ensure the survival of our people. It carries strength beyond your understanding. But we do not wield it recklessly. We do not seek conflict. We do not need it to prove ourselves." The officers exchanged nervous glances. The calmness in the voice was unsettling. It did not carry fear nor arrogance. It carried certainty, quiet confidence, and control. Solon finally spoke. "They speak as if they are aware of us." Lauren nodded. "Not just aware. They know the limits of what we can see. Their ship responds not only with systems, but with understanding. They communicate through silence as much as through words." Ryan's voice continued. "We are capable of defending ourselves. We will not provoke others, but we ask that you respect the same. Any aggression toward us will meet a response not in anger, but in the measured use of power we have carefully contained. This is not a threat. It is a choice we hope you will honor." The room fell into silence again. Even the younger officers felt the weight of the words. The humans were speaking not to intimidate, but to establish understanding. Every word carried the authority of experience, the confidence of survival, and the calm of those who had faced far greater dangers than this patrol fleet. Laren looked at the captain. "They are not boasting. They are stating a fact. Their ship is beyond anything we have faced, and they know it. They do not need to show their strength to prove it." Solon exhaled slowly. "We have underestimated them for centuries. Not only their technology, but their wisdom, patience, and control. They do not need to raise weapons. Their presence alone is proof." Meanwhile, on the Guardian of Dawn, Ryan spoke to his officers in quiet tones. "We have let them see enough. Curiosity is natural. Let them learn what they can without overstepping. They will respect caution if we remain steady and calm." Mira, standing beside him, nodded. "They are watching everything. Our silence speaks louder than words. They will understand the discipline behind our strength." Aaron, in the engineering decks, observed the reactors humming steadily. "It is strange," he said to a cadet. "They do not see the power as threat. They see the calm that contains it. Strength without recklessness is more frightening than power alone." The cadet nodded, wide-eyed. "It is like the ship itself is teaching them." Ryan smiled faintly. "Perhaps it is. Perhaps the truth of humanity is stronger than the weapons we carry. Let them learn patience before judgment." Back aboard the Zalorian patrol, Lauren recorded every detail. "They do not speak to scare us," he said almost reverently. "They speak to guide. Their ship, their crew, their words, everything carries understanding. We are witnessing a species that has mastered both technology and discipline." Solon finally made a decision. "We will not press further. No scans beyond this point. We will observe but not provoke. They have shown us their strength. Now, we must respect it." The room filled with quiet agreement. Every officer understood that what they had encountered was not simply a warship. It was a message carried in metal, light, and calm voice. Humanity had chosen silence, patience, and restraint over display of power. That was the most astonishing revelation of all. Ryan ended the communication. We will continue our journey. We do not seek enemies, but know this. Do not mistake silence for weakness. Strength is not shown in threat, but in the mastery of what you hold. May our paths remain clear, and our knowledge guide understanding. The line went silent. The Zolorians did not immediately respond. They simply stared at the screens, at the dark silhouette of the Guardian of Dawn, glowing faintly from the light of distant stars. In that silence, a new truth settled among the patrol. Humanity had risen not only through innovation, but through careful wisdom. They had power, but they also had restraint. They had weapons beyond imagining. Yet they chose to teach respect rather than fear. Lauren whispered softly to no one in particular. This is why they survive, why they endure, why they rise. Not because they are reckless, but because they are steady. The galaxy has underestimated them for far too long. Solon nodded, feeling the weight of centuries of misjudgment. We will watch, yes, but we will also learn. There is a law now we cannot ignore. Do not stand against Earth unless you understand what you face. Outside the patrol ships, the Guardian of Dawn glided steadily through the silent expanse. Inside, the crew moved with quiet purpose, every step measured, every voice calm. They carried the legacy of a species that had survived countless trials, and had turned patience into strength. And for the Zolorians, the astonishment was complete. The Guardian of Dawn moved steadily through the empty space, its great hull glowing faintly from the distant light of stars. Inside, the crew continued their duties with quiet discipline. Every officer, every engineer, every cadet knew their role, and the ship itself seemed to breathe with their rhythm. Captain Rian stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, observing the stars. The Zolorian patrol ships lingered at a distance, still curious, still scanning, yet holding their position with cautious respect. The first contact had passed without conflict, but the memory of astonishment lingered in the minds of the aliens. Ryan spoke softly to his officers. They have seen our strength. They have measured our discipline. But what they do not yet fully understand is what guides us. Power without purpose is nothing. Strength without patience is dangerous. And humanity, above all, chooses reason before force. Mira, the tactical officer, nodded. They will learn in time. Every civilization learns its lessons in different ways, some through conflict, some through observation. The Zolorians are observers today. Good, Ryan said. Let them watch. Let them see patience in action. Below the command deck, engineers moved among the reactors, monitoring the stellar fragments that powered the ship. The great cores pulsed gently, as if in harmony with the steady footsteps of the crew. Arun, the chief engineer, watched a young cadet inspect one of the stabilizers. Do you feel it? Arun asked. The cadet nodded slowly. The power, it hums, but it is calm. It listens. Yes, Aaron said. This ship is alive in ways they cannot see, but it is our partnership that guides it. Every pulse, every command flows through the ship like a shared heartbeat. It is not only a weapon. It is a guardian of our people and a teacher to those who watch. Back aboard the Zolorian patrol, the officers were silent. They had witnessed the scans, the response, and now the calm movement of the vessel. Lauren, still at his console, turned to Captain Solon. We have studied ships for centuries, he said. We have measured energy, alloys, engines, weapons. But never before have we seen a creation like this. It is alive, but not like any life we know, and it is guided by minds that match it in patience and purpose. Solon's face was calm, but the weight of understanding pressed upon him. It is not only the technology, he said quietly. It is the discipline, the restraint, the unity. That is what makes them formidable. For hours, the two forces moved silently, humans and Zalorians alike, observing, learning, and measuring in different ways. The human crew continued their routines, showing no fear, no arrogance. Their calm confidence became the most powerful statement of all. Finally, Lyra, the communication officer on the Guardian of Dawn, spoke quietly to Ryan. They are no longer scanning as aggressively. I think they understand, at least in part, the meaning behind our presence. Ryan nodded. Yes. Curiosity is satisfied, but respect has been earned. This is what we hoped for. That understanding comes before conflict. The young cadets on the ship watched the stars, feeling the vastness of space and the quiet power surrounding them. One whispered, "It is like the ship carries us but also teaches us." Mira smiled. "It does. And one day you will see that humanity's true power lies not in what we hold in our hands, but in what we hold in our minds and hearts." The Zalorians began to withdraw, slowly drifting away from the system. Their sensors remained active, but their scans became cautious, almost reverent. Captain Solon gave the order, and the fleet moved in formation, leaving the humans free to continue their journey. Laren stayed at his console, staring at the data. He realized that the encounter would be remembered for centuries. Humanity had not shown fear, had not threatened, and had not wasted their power. Instead, they had demonstrated mastery through discipline, patience, and understanding. This is the dawn of a new respect, Lauren said quietly. We have misjudged them for too long. And now we know the galaxy must reconsider what Earth truly represents. On the bridge of the Guardian of Dawn, Ryan looked out at the departing patrol ships. Let them carry their astonishment home, he said. Let them tell their people what they have seen. Let this be the beginning of understanding, not conflict. The crew returned to their routines, quietly proud. Not in boastful display, but in the knowledge that they had honored every human who had come before them. Every step they took, every command they executed, was a testament to survival, ingenuity, and the quiet strength that humanity had always carried. And across the dark expanse of space, the Guardian of Dawn glided onward. Its hull held light and strength. Its reactors hummed with power beyond imagination, and its crew moved with calm precision. For the Zalorians, it was the beginning of a new perspective. For humanity, it was another step in a journey of endurance, of patience, and of quiet mastery. The warship, alive with purpose, carried a message to the stars, one of restraint, of wisdom, and of a species that had risen to face the galaxy with strength tempered by understanding. The universe had witnessed the human hand, the human mind, and the human heart working together in harmony. The lesson was clear. Humanity had arrived, not as conquerors, but as guardians, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again.